Alright guys, Darren from Honest Money and welcome back to another video. Now if you're thinking about starting a limited company but aren't sure whether it's the right choice to make, hopefully you're going to find this video useful. What I want to do is share with you the advantages and disadvantages that I see from starting your own limited company based on my own experiences of running limited companies for over 10 years. So hopefully you guys will find what I give you useful and it will help you make the decision whether a limited company is right for you. So the first advantage, and that is that the company that you start would be a limited liability company. So that's where the limited comes from in the name. And what that means is that your business is a separate entity to yourself. And that is super important with business because anything goes wrong, you don't want to be personally liable. For example, say you take out a loan for maybe £5,000 or £10,000 through the business and that limited company gets into trouble and it goes bust. You wouldn't personally be liable for that money. Also, maybe something goes wrong with the business and someone sues you. You would not be personally liable and it would only fall on the business and not on yourself. The only times where you would be personally liable is one, is if you did something illegal or fraudulent, or two, you had signed a contract where you were personally liable. To give you an example for that, I recently opened a business bank account and applied for a business credit card. Now at the time, the business bank said to me that I could have a credit card that was purely assessed on the business alone up to a limit of £5,000. If I wanted the limit to be anything above £5,000, then they would have assessed me personally and I would have also been personally liable for that money. So I decided just to stick with a £5,000 credit card limit for then. So if anything goes wrong for the business, it does not fall back on me and it will fall back onto the business. The next advantage of having a limited business is that it will give you a professional image. Even a newly started limited company will sound really, really good when you add LTD or limited at the end of your company name. And that alone for many people is a strong enough reason to start their own limited company. The next advantage to starting your own limited company is that it will protect your business name. So when you actually register for a limited company, the name that you choose, there are some restrictions on the name you can actually choose, but once you've chosen that name and it has been approved, no one else will be able to register an identical name or one that is very, very similar. So it doesn't give you complete protection, and I would still recommend applying for a trademark down the line, but to start with, it does give you a certain amount of protection. And it's also a way of reserving a name that you may plan to use in the future. For example, you can open a limited company, then just declare that business dormant for a year or two until you're actually ready to start that company. So registering for a limited company can be a really good way of protecting your business name. Now this next point, I could probably make an entire video discussing the potential tax savings of operating a limited company. What I'm just going to do in this video is touch on the major ones and the most common ones that people are going to experience. So the first one is the way you pay yourself. Now as a director of a limited company, usually the best way to pay yourself is via a basic salary and then topped up with dividends. I have a separate video going into this in much more detail and I'll link this in the top comment and also I'll put a link in the description. So if you want to look into how to pay yourself as a director of a limited company, make sure you check out this video after you finished watching this one. The next thing is you can avoid paying national insurance. If you pay yourself a basic salary under the national insurance threshold as an employee of that limited company, you wouldn't have to pay any national insurance, and the employer, which is also you, wouldn't have to pay any national insurance either. So it's very important to avoid that, as you do not want to get double national insurance taxation as an employee of your own company. Another potential tax savings is that any pension contributions are tax deductible. So with a limited company, any allowable business expenses you do not have to pay corporation tax on. So money that you pay yourself towards your pension, you do not have to pay 19% corporation tax on. So you can't do that as a sole trader, but as a limited company, you can avoid paying any corporation tax on that money that you pay yourself as a pensions contribution. Now this next point I don't see pop up in many of these lists of advantages for starting a limited company, and that is you can spread your income over multiple years. So what do I mean by that? Well, quite often when you run your own business, your income can be quite lumpy. So you might have some really, really good months, or you might have a really, really good year followed by maybe a bad year or a slightly less year where you make a bit less money. Now if you make all of your money in 1 year and then try to pull all of that money out, you'll be pushing yourself into the higher tax threshold. So sometimes it's more efficient to keep that money as retained profits in the business and pull it out in future years. So for example, if you made £80,000 of profit last year, instead of pulling it all out last year and pushing yourself into that higher tax threshold, you might be more beneficial to only pull £40,000 last year and maybe £40,000 this year to help spread out that income. So with a limited company, it gives you a lot more flexibility with regards to how and when you pull money down from the business to your own personal account. Now most of us that start a limited company are probably thinking that one day if things go well we may want to sell it. So with a limited company it is much easier to sell. With a limited company you have shares, you have shareholders, so it's a lot easier to sell a limited company than it is to sell a sole trader business. And finally, if you do want to start a limited company, it is really, really cheap. There are lots of formation companies that can do this for you for a very, very small amount. But if you go direct to the UK Gov website, it's only £12 and you can probably do it in 15 or 20 minutes. So those are the advantages of a limited company as I see them. I'd love to hear from you guys what you think are the advantages. Let me know in the comments below. What I want to do now is take a look at the disadvantages so you know what you're getting yourself into. Okay, so these first 2 points are directly related, and as part of having a limited company, there are more complex accounts and administrative tasks required. So as a result of that, you will have to pay more in accountancy fees. Now, you don't have to have an accountant, but I would strongly recommend having an accountant, as there are lots of little bits that you need to understand in detail to make sure you're adhering to all of these requirements on an annual basis. So the first thing you'll need to do is submit annual accounts. So what I usually do is keep all of my records, and at the end of the year, I'll pass them over to my accountant, and they will take care of creating my annual accounts, give me some summaries, and then I'll sign them off and they'll be submitted. Then off the back of the annual accounts, we can then calculate the corporation tax that is due, and the corporation tax return is then submitted, and then you have to pay any corporation tax due within 9 months of the end of that annual accounting period. You also have to submit an annual confirmation statement. I actually do this myself. I don't leave it to my accountant. You just go onto the Companies House website. It costs £13, and all you're really doing is just confirming everything is still the same. So for example, the business registered address is still the same, the directors are still the same, the shareholders and the amount of shares you've got are still the same. If anything's changed, then you want to update that. If you want to use an accountant, you can, and some accountants will actually include this free of charge and just expect you to pay the £13 fee to them separately. You will also have to set up a payroll scheme. Even if you're only paying yourself a basic director salary, you'll still need a payroll scheme with monthly RTI submissions sent to HMRC to let them know that you're paying yourself maybe £700 or £720 per month, and then that is taken care of as part of your payroll scheme. So as you can see, there are more requirements and there is more administrative tasks required as part of operating a limited company. Now, this next point is probably one of the biggest disadvantages to running your own limited company, and that is that your director's details and also your business finances are available for public viewing via various websites. So for example, the information you submit in your annual return, that will be visible on these websites within a few weeks of it being submitted. Also, your director's details, so for example, if you set up your business and enter your own personal address when creating that business, then your own home address will be visible via these websites. So when you create your business, it may be worth asking your accountant if you can use their address, or a lot of these formation companies will offer a privacy option where you can use their address when forming the company. And finally, the final disadvantage to running your own limited company is as a director of that limited company, self-assessment becomes mandatory. So every single year you will have to submit a self-assessment or get your accountant to do it for you. So hopefully you guys found this list of advantages and disadvantages of running a limited company useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could just take a moment, scroll down and hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos around personal and business advice, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.